It was the kind of spa you read about in glossy magazines, the kind where the scent of lavender meets the sound of water trickling from indoor fountains, and the lighting is soft enough to make you forget the world outside. Women walked around in silk robes monogrammed with gold initials, sipping lemon-infused water as they discussed summer homes and private chefs. The front desk glowed beneath a curved crystal chandelier, and the receptionist wore a headset more expensive than most people's phones. And into this curated calm walked a woman who didn't quite match the scene. Her name was Elina. She wasn't dressed for display. No designer handbag, no sleek athleisure set, no oversized sunglasses balanced on her head. Just a simple, long coat, comfortable shoes, and a plain tote bag on her shoulder. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her face clean of makeup, and her posture calm, confident even, but not in a way that begged to be seen. She looked like someone who had come for peace, not performance. The receptionist gave her a glance that lasted a second too long. Not rude, not direct, but loaded. Elina smiled politely. "Hi, I have a 10 a.m. massage appointment under Elina." Before she could finish, the receptionist cut her off with a tight smile. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked today." Elina blinked, confused. "I booked online last week. I even received a confirmation email yesterday." The receptionist tilted her head, tapping her keyboard just enough to make it look like she was checking. Unfortunately, don't see any appointments under that name. Are you sure it was this location?" A couple of women lounging nearby glanced over, one of them hiding a smirk behind her cucumber water. Elina remained calm. "Yes, I even added my preferences: lavender oil, firm pressure, and a female therapist." The receptionist sighed as if dealing with a small child. "Again, ma'am, I don't see anything, and our walk-in policy is currently suspended. Perhaps try again next month?" There was no scene, no raised voices, no dramatic tension, just an unspoken message hanging in the air. "You don't look like someone who belongs here." And that was fine, because they didn't know whose name was printed on every single towel, stitched into every robe, and engraved at the bottom of the glass entrance. They didn't know the man behind the spa empire, and they definitely didn't know who he had built it for. But they were about to find out. Elina didn't argue, she didn't beg. She simply nodded, thanked the receptionist for her time, and stepped aside to make a phone call. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, private, efficient. She walked toward the hallway near the lounge, where soft instrumental music played and the scent of eucalyptus drifted from a diffuser nearby. She pulled out her phone and dialed one number. "They said they're fully booked." There was a pause on the other end of the line. No, don't cancel anything. I just thought you should know." She listened for a few seconds longer, then gave a small smile and hung up. A moment later, she returned to the lounge, taking a seat in one of the waiting chairs and folding her hands neatly in her lap. Her presence was quiet, but it drew attention, not because she demanded it, but because she held herself with a kind of calm that didn't need approval. Behind the front desk, the receptionist had already moved on to another client, this time a woman in full glam, tossing her black card on the counter with casual flair. The staff were laughing now, chatting softly about their upcoming staff night out, paying no more attention to the woman who'd been turned away minutes earlier. That was until the glass doors slid open. The room shifted. The atmosphere changed, not because of volume or movement, but because of presence. A man walked in, tall and sharply dressed, wearing a tailored suit and an aura of authority that silenced casual conversations mid-sentence. The doorman, who had been chatting with a valet, snapped to attention. A spa manager walking by paused and backtracked so quickly it was almost comical. Even the receptionist's face froze when she looked up and saw him, because every single person in that building recognized him. Damian Rothwell, founder and CEO of the Rothwell Wellness Group. the man whose luxury spa chain was now in every major city across the country. A billionaire known not for flash, but for precision, elegance, standards, and right now he was walking toward one woman, Elina. She stood as he approached, and without hesitation, he wrapped his arm gently around her waist and kissed her forehead. The small display of affection, subtle and intimate, sent a shockwave through the room. "Elina," he said with warmth in his voice, "I came as fast as I could." His eyes then shifted from her to the front desk. "What exactly happened?" he asked softly, though the weight in his voice sent shivers down the spines of everyone within earshot. The receptionist tried to speak, but her throat was suddenly dry. Her fingers hovered uselessly over the keyboard. Damian walked forward, still keeping one arm lightly around Elina. "This is the woman these spas were created for. This exact space, this exact scent, this music, this tone. It was all designed because she once told me she wished she had a place to disappear into peace. And now I find out she was erased from her own appointment?" His voice never rose, but the silence in the room deepened. The receptionist managed to stammer, I didn't know, sir. Her name didn't show up." "You didn't check properly," Damian said, "or perhaps you did, and decided she didn't look like your usual clientele." The other guests, especially those who had smirked earlier, sat, and Damian wasn't finished. Damian stepped behind the reception counter with the quiet authority of someone who didn't need permission, because it was all his to begin with. The receptionist awkwardly stepped aside, trying to hide her panic behind a forced smile, but it was useless now. Her face had gone pale. Her fingers trembled as she stood there, exposed under the weight of her own judgment. Damian pulled up the digital system on the screen and typed Elina's name himself. In seconds, her appointment appeared, confirmed, prepaid, customized to her preferences. Lavender oil, firm pressure, female therapist. The booking had been perfect. The system had worked. It was the human filter that failed. He turned the screen toward the receptionist but didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The proof spoke louder than anything else in the room. A long silence followed, during which the staff at nearby stations stopped pretending to work and simply watched. The manager rushed forward, breathless and red-faced. "Mr. Rothwell, I'm terribly sorry. This isn't how we train our staff. I'll personally ensure that—" "No need," Damian interrupted calmly. "She already did exactly what she was trained to do. You see, training doesn't fail like this. Character does." That line dropped into the air like a stone in still water, rippling across every guest and staff member present. He turned back to Elina, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. "I don't want you to ever feel like you have to explain yourself. Not in a place that exists because of you." Elina gave him a soft smile. There was no smugness, no gloating, just quiet grace. Because she hadn't come to be proven right. She had only come for peace. But peace wasn't something others had allowed her until now. Damian turned toward the gathered staff. "Effective immediately, all guest interactions will be recorded and reviewed for profiling bias. And Elina's name is to be flagged in the system, not for priority service, but as the co-founder of this brand. If she is ever treated like a stranger again, this entire location will be shut down." The words were clear, the tone calm, but there was no mistaking the finality. The guests in the lobby, many of whom had judged Elina earlier, now sat in awkward silence, some avoiding her gaze, others unsure how to apologize without making it worse. But Elina wasn't looking at them. She wasn't looking for revenge or validation. She had already moved on. Damian turned and guided her toward the hallway. The doors to the spa's private suite opened without a word from staff. Inside was a world apart. Dim lights, warm towels, soft music, a custom robe already waiting with her initials embroidered in gold. A handwritten note lay on the bench inside. "You were never just a guest. You were always the reason." Elina stepped inside, finally let. As Elina entered the private suite, she felt the tension of the morning begin to dissolve, not just from her muscles, but from somewhere deeper. The space welcomed her like a warm embrace. The soft rustle of fresh linen, the gentle fragrance of sandalwood, and the low hum of calming melodies created a world untouched by ego, comparison, or status games. Here she wasn't judged, she was just. Elina, her therapist, an older woman with kind eyes and a deep professionalism, entered quietly and offered her a respectful smile. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, only sincere hospitality. "It's an honor to work with you today," she said softly, and that one sentence meant more to Elina than the 1,000 apologies fluttering in the air outside. The massage began, and for the first time that day, Elina allowed herself to let go. She closed her eyes and sank into the warmth of the table, the rhythm of expert hands easing away the invisible weight she had carried not just today, but for years. Because this wasn't the first time she had been dismissed for not fitting into someone else's version of luxury. It had happened in restaurants, in stores, in airports, in boardrooms, always underestimated. Always met with the same surprise when the truth revealed itself. But what the world didn't understand was that Elina had never wanted to be the center of attention. She didn't crave the spotlight or the gold-stamped invitations. She had lived through enough of that when Damian's success had exploded. She had seen how people's behavior changed the moment they learned her last name, how their tone shifted, how respect was handed out only when wealth was obvious. So she'd started dressing simpler, speaking less, listening more. Not as a test, but as a choice, a way to stay connected to who she really was. And moments like this, they only reinforced that choice. Because when people treated her like she didn't belong, it revealed exactly who they were. Meanwhile, outside the private suite, the spa's entire energy had shifted. Staff moved quietly, nervously, phones buzzed with internal messages. The regional manager had already been informed. A memo was being drafted about Elina's role in the founding of the brand, a detail few knew but now all would be required to understand. Even the guests in the lounge weren't the same. The woman who had smirked behind her cucumber water was now sitting in awkward silence, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The influencer in the bright robe who once live-streamed her facials had gone unusually quiet, scrolling through her feed, but not posting anything. Because word had spread, not through press, not through headlines, but through the only thing that truly mattered: presence. And Elina's presence had just rewritten the rules. After her treatment, Elina emerged from the private suite refreshed, her steps lighter, but her posture no less poised. She didn't glide across the floor with the drama of someone trying to prove a point. She simply moved with the kind of quiet confidence that needed no announcement. The robe wrapped around her bore her initials in gold thread, but it wasn't that which caught the staff's attention. It was the way she carried herself, unshaken, untouched by the earlier humiliation. Damian was waiting in the lobby. He stood beside the spa manager, who now looked like he hadn't exhaled in 20 minutes. The receptionist stood a few paces back, arms stiff at her sides, her once perfect posture replaced by shame. As Elina approached, the staff parted instinctively, like petals folding back for sunlight. Damian gave her a gentle smile and reached for her hand. Not performative, not possessive, just a simple act of love. "We've handled everything," he said quietly. "The staff will undergo retraining. A new oversight system is being implemented, and your profile is now locked into every branch of the company." Elina nodded. "That's thoughtful, but I don't want special treatment." "I know," Damian replied. "You never have. That's why you deserve it more than anyone." The spa manager finally found his voice. "Mrs. Rothwell, I want to extend my deepest apologies. There is no excuse for how you were treated today." Elina looked at him, her expression gentle but firm. "There's no need to apologize to me. Just treat the next woman with the same respect you'd give if you knew her husband owned the place. Or better yet, treat her with respect because she might." The weight of those words settled into the air like incense, soft yet unmistakable. She didn't linger for applause or dramatics. Instead, she walked toward the exit with Damian beside her. But just as they reached the door, a soft voice called out, "Excuse me, ma'am." It was the young attendant from earlier, the one who had watched everything quietly from behind the reception desk, but hadn't participated. She now stood with a fresh towel in her hands and a nervous tremble in her voice. "I just wanted to say, thank you. Not just for how you handled it, but for not making us feel small, even when we were wrong." Elina's eyes softened. "Thank you for saying that. Keep watching. Keep speaking up. That's how we all get better." And with that, she stepped through the doors into the afternoon light. The sun filtered through the glass, casting a golden hue on the marble floor behind her. Inside the spa, silence returned. Not uncomfortable, but reflective. People weren't rushing back to their conversations or Instagram stories. They were still processing. Because something had changed. And it wasn't just the spa's policies. It was the understanding that class isn't what you wear or how loudly you walk into a room. Sometimes, it's the quietest person in the room who owns the building. Outside the spa, the city pulsed as usual, cars passing, heels clicking on pavement, distant conversations blending with the hum of daily life. But for Elina, everything moved a little slower now. Not because the world had changed, but because she had reclaimed something that the morning had tried to take from her. She and Damian walked side by side toward their car, but not in silence. He was telling her about a new location opening in Milan, asking whether she wanted to help design the scent profile. It was how their story had always worked. She wasn't just his wife. She was the soul behind every detail, every calming melody, every fabric choice, every herb-infused oil that turned a simple massage into an escape. It was her instinct for peace that had built the Rothwell wellness brand. And today, she'd reminded everyone of that, even if she never said it aloud. The driver opened the door, and Elina slid in with quiet grace. As Damian joined her, he paused to glance back at the building. "Funny," he murmured, "that place never felt more like yours than it did today." Elina smiled. "Because today, they finally saw the truth." He nodded. "Next time you want a massage, we'll make them come to you." She laughed softly. "Next time, I just want to book it like everyone else, without needing your name." Back inside the spa, a quiet revolution had begun. The receptionist had been reassigned to retraining under direct supervision. The manager had already begun implementing new policies. And the once cocky clientele now exchanged pleasantries with unusual humility. But the real change didn't show up in memos or meetings. It lived in the eyes of every staff member who had seen Elina walk in like just another woman, and leave as something far more powerful, a mirror. A mirror that reflected their own assumptions, their own fragility, and their own definitions of status. By the following week, the spa had placed a new plaque near the entrance. Not loud, not gaudy, just elegant script etched into brushed metal, framed with soft backlighting. Inspired by Elina, built for those who carry peace with them. No last name, no title, just truth. And while the world moved on, Elina didn't post a word about what happened. She didn't need to. Her silence said more than a viral quote ever could, because the strongest message isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's a woman who enters quietly and leaves having changed everything.